Okay, we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Poker Broadcaster. Kristen here, and today our topic is, the October 11 epic crypto liquidation. It's the greatest ever liquidation in the crypto history, I think, and in just 1 hour. 19 billion worth of positions were liquidated, and uh, we might not even be seeing all the full impact yet. And for the market makers to exchanges to retail investors, almost everyone took a hit. Hope two of you guys projects are good. And during extreme conditions like this, many of the usual liquidation mechanism and trading strategies just can't keep up. So today we've invited Ben from Hydration and Tyrone from Bifrost to talk about the DeFi, how DeFi can evolve and adapt after a crisis like this. So welcome you guys. First, I think let's because you guys are professional or expertise on DeFi. So firstly, I'd love to hear both of your thoughts based on your expertise. Why was it so massive, and was it mainly due to excessive leverage, or did some underlying infrastructure fails, or what's your take on this? Ben, would you like to kick things off?
Sure. Yeah. So I think a lot of the post-mortems have sort of indicated that there were some infrastructure failures on the Binance side, which unfortunately led to huge amounts of positions unwinding, and market makers unfortunately pulling large-scale amounts of liquidity as part of that unwinding and leveraging facility, which essentially made what was apparently to the outside world, super deep liquidity for all of these altcoins, which were, the most heavily impacted. All of a sudden, in seconds that evaporated, and it allowed these deleveraging events to just cascade down into basically non-existent order books. So lack of transparency there. And sort of it looking like it was one thing when it wasn't, certainly led to, let's say, some violent moves.
Lack of transparency. And Tyrone, what's your thought on this?
Essentially the same as Ben, to be honest. So Binance, I also heard a story from my friend who is a dealer on Binance, and they actually have the defense and the risk management. So they are a bunch of professional dealers in the market. But as you can see, for example, for the dot price, right, which goes down to about 0.6 at the lowest point, right, from 3 to 0.6. So you cannot imagine that there's so many of the dealers in the market and that things actually happened. So the story that he told me is like the API that he read from the Binance that didn't work for essentially for an hour, and which makes them the auto deleverage strategy is not working. So which means the fund cannot be withdrawn from the futures market, and the position will be liquidated instantly. So which means they're just sitting there looking at the screen and nothing they can do with it. So that's why the massive amount of dealers got liquidated, and you can see the market price got dramatically reflects on the curve. So that's the reason.
Yeah, it's really a massive liquidation, and users cannot do anything to cannot do anything at the moment. And so how is the situation on chain? So did Hydration and Bifrost suffer any losses during this event?
I don't know if you want me to start. So yeah, it was quite a volatile period for us. So you saw on Binance that the price of DOT dropped down to like 60 cents at one point. I remember I was actually watching it live. I was about to go to bed, and I just felt something wasn't right. So I was like, I might tinker around with some of my positions. And I opened up, and then I just saw this massive Hades candle, right? And yeah, quite scary. Like when you're super involved in this space, to see something like DOT go so low. But the price, fortunately, on Hydration never reached quite those crazy lows. The thing about Hydration with the Omnipool is we have exceptionally deep on-chain liquidity, right? And I always used to jokingly state years ago that, Omnipool is a liquidity provider of last resort. It's never going to dump on your head. It doesn't have dynamic orders that it pulls during such events. It's there. So of course, arbitragers were probably buying up cheap DOT on Binance and then selling it in the Omnipool, which, that along with liquidations and the likes did lead to the price of DOT, I think, on Hydration reaching $2.30 or 50 or something like that. But yeah, nowhere near as extreme as we saw elsewhere. There were a lot of liquidations. The protocol has been impacted by a very small amount of what we call toxic debt, but this was significantly lower than the liquidation revenue, etc., that was generated at the time. So the protocol as a whole is absolutely fine, unscathed from it. Obviously not the same case for all the users. So ultimately we're looking at how can we improve it in case such an event happens again. How can we make sure that the users are protected as much as possible?
Yeah. Okay. Lucky. Yeah, good to hear. So how is Bifrost?
So the liquid staking business not get any harmed during this event. And I'm checking the price, the exchange price between DOT and VDOT on Hydration or on Bifrost. It looks healthy as well. So honestly saying, we don't have any of the impact after this thing. So just realize that actually the DOT staking, we got more rest during the situation. So so for us it's good.
Okay, good to hear. And so we this is some background informations, and after that we have some questions to touch on, which is how to solve these problems in the future. Because today's DeFi is packed with complex strategies, looped farming and LST, LRT, arbitrage, and more. Of course, there are also long-standing risks like smart contract vulnerabilities and forced liquidations. I'd love to hear from you both, and which risks do you personally worry about the most, and how does DeFi handle these extremes when they hit? Because after all, this is crypto. There's always going to another crash and another frenzy. So who wanna start first?
I can happily jump in there. So personally, especially after last week, week before last, maybe now, it's the idea of cascading liquidations, right? And it's always been that way, but where one volatile event triggers another, which triggers another, and it all just gets worse and worse and worse, right? And you're right, there's always another crash, and everyone thinks that it's super cycle and things like that, and then there's always some big event, black swan or whatever, that causes such an event. So I think we all we can do is prepare for that, continue building products that try to mitigate those circumstances. So hydration, we're in the process of rolling out our protocol executed partial liquidations, nicknamed PEPL. It's actually only running on a single collator at the moment, which is like our sequencers. Essentially, this aims to liquidate positions for the absolute minimum amount that they can, rather than liquidating 50% of it like you do on just like vanilla Aave. Essentially, what this allows you to do is do these really tiny little liquidations continuously every block, rather than just like huge, massive trades, which are going to cause big slippage and therefore further liquidations. So the idea is that you're spreading them out over time. You're allowing arbitrageurs to reset the market and find that price sooner, and sort of like retain more funds for the user. So it's better for them because they obviously hold more of their assets, but also it mitigates that horrific impact. We're also developing. So what we noticed was obviously Binance, it turns out, didn't have that much liquidity in the first place, or it was very fragile. But a lot of oracles and things rely on this and weight this data quite heavily because it's Binance, right? So actually, we saw the price spike down on our oracle, I think, to say, for example, $2.10 or something. But obviously, our local market on hydration was much higher. And so really liquidating users based on some external market that might not be realistic when we have a really deep market locally doesn't really make sense. So we're now developing what is sort of like an oracle throttle, which will have some predetermined range, let's say 10%. And if you have an oracle update that would swing outside of that, then we would hold that. We would limit it to whatever our local one is, so that we can make sure that positions aren't getting like huge liquidations for something that, because you saw it, right? 60 cents and then you're back at $2 or whatever, right? So why would you liquidate something that's a $1.50 liquidation price if 20 seconds later it's back above it, right? So just trying to bring in things that can just bring a bit of sense, a bit of order, rather than just like the volatility that we used to.
Okay, cool. And from our understanding, there's something happened to the API of Binance. Do you think that kind of accident would happen on chain?
Is that a question for Ben or for me?
For Ben.
Sorry. So you obviously always have dependencies, any chain or any centralized exchange, right? There are always dependencies, but obviously the idea is that you try and mitigate as many of those as possible. So recently, let's just say an example from this week, right? AWS went down, and all of a sudden we found out that all of these decentralized networks are not very decentralized because you couldn't access them. On hydration, we have around 20 collators or sequencers at the moment, which generally we one of the requirements is that they run their own bare metal infrastructure where they are, and they're geographically dispersed across the globe. So the idea of this is that if you have one failing piece, you still have other ways of connecting to those, right? So there are always things that can come down. I think a few users in the US had some issues connecting to our UI. Transpires that was related to Cloudflare, which is based on AWS outage, right? So you can always find these little dependencies and these things that fall down. The idea is that you provide as many mitigations or as many fail safes or backups as possible so that people can still trade, still access. Nobody was able to withdraw from Binance. Nobody was able to do deposit on it. Everything wasn't working. You need to try and keep as much working for as long as possible.
Okay, thank you. And another question for Ben, which is, you've pointed out that the untransparency is the core issue of Binance, but on chain, they're maybe in some aspect they're very transparent, so everyone knows your position and everyone knows when you will get liquidated. So is there some trade-off between this?
Yeah, for sure. And you've seen it in the narratives, right, between Hyperliquid and then I think it's Asterdex, where basically, they're saying that these people are getting hunted. They're putting up billion-dollar positions, long or short. And then, as they say, there's always a bigger fish, right? So then somebody who's much bigger is thinking, well, if I can push the price down to this, then I can liquidate that position and then I can close and I can make a nice profit. So having it all on chain is, of course, always has its own risks. The idea or the important thing is that everybody has the same information. Whereas with centralized exchanges, a lot of the time the information can be asymmetric, right? So I guess it's trade-offs between those things. Again, you can put as many things in place as you can to try and mitigate those. So if you have users that have a very specific liquidation point, you need to make sure that you're not allowing for. So let's say, for example, we make sure that we don't just use our local markets for Oracle prices, right? Because if you have a shallow market, then somebody could just sell a lot of that token if it's illiquid and cause somebody to liquidate, which might cascade. If you have a much bigger market, then you need to try and aggregate as many of those prices as possible to make sure that a much bigger move is required and can't just be sort of executed in silos. So again, we're developing sort of aggregation in our oracles to make sure that it's using as much information as possible and reducing that surface area for such an attack.
Okay, thanks for sharing. And what's your take on this, Tyron? Which risks do you personally worry about the most? Obviously, Bifrost doesn't suffer a lot from this October 11 accident, but what's your most what risk do you personally worry about most?
Yeah, for us, the key point is that we not engaging a lot from the API from the centralized exchange. So it's not too nervous for us for especially like the black swan things. But my personally, I think the point is like when the thing is really happened, that's the oracle is really works well because like Ben just mentioned about Hyperliquid and A star, which is two top of perpetual protocols in the market. And there was the thing happened in a month ago is that the API that the A star rating is from Binance, and there was also a problem of API of the API that they're rating from the Binance. There was mistakenly happened about fall down about just a couple of minutes. So which caused the E short on A star was get liquidated in about 10 minutes. So which make the thing happen like there was a difference price between A star and Binance. So all of these protocols like Hyperliquid, A star, this perp markets, they are rating the price from the API of the centralized exchange. So when this users doing leverage and futures things on chain, which means they are bearing the risk from the centralized exchange as well. That's what Ben just mentioned as well. So that's the most the weakest link right now, and hopefully we can see more of the local oracle can be deployed on chain, like hydration or what they are trying to do, and we can expect there's not much of the black box you cannot say the thing is not a black box, is not like a decentralized exchange, malicious doing things. You cannot say that, but who knows, right? Just keep it locally and keep it on chain so we can make sure this is transparent.
Yeah, it is true. So, do you see there's some solutions already existing in this market, like you mentioned what Hydration did?
Well, firstly, you mentioned about the locally Oracle, and then this trying to do in the trenches of the liquidation positions. So I mean, that's two of the solution is what the is like against the the centralized weakest link. So maybe Ben, if you want to say more about this.
I think you covered it nicely. Just ultimately, yeah, there's always new features and new ways that you can mitigate some of these risks. We're building on the best tech stack for that in my mind. We've got some nice foundations there, and the tech stack allows us to keep adding on these additional Lego bricks and additional pieces that just make sense, right? That allow you to control the piece of the puzzle that otherwise could be attacked from these events.
Okay, thanks for sharing. And also, we've received some feedback from the community saying that they'd love to hear both of your thoughts on stable coins. So we will continue our discussion on stable coins. Because stable coins really the only crypto applications that managed to reach mass adoption, both in terms of real world use and regulation, regulatory recognition. So firstly, I would like to invite Ben to introduce Hydration's stablecoin Holla. And could you share some data or key metrics since its launch, and from what you've observed so far, how is the stability, Ben?
Yeah, I'd love to. So Holla is our decentralized stablecoin that we launched a few weeks ago. So this is based on Aave's Go model, and then we've built around that some foundations to strengthen the peg using the stack that we've developed, right? The all-in-one DeFi stack. So a few of those features include the Holla stability module, as well as our stable pools and stable pools with drifting pegs that allow us to focus that liquidity around for Holla locally, and then enshrine arbitrage in the protocol itself. So rather than relying on third-party actors to maintain the peg and leaking value to that, the protocol can take care of it itself. And if something becomes stronger as liquidity grows, as issuance grows, so Holla is now just over 5 million total issuance. 4 million of that is borrowed through our supply and borrow feature. So that's where you provide collateral and then you can mint that at a fixed APY of 5% per year. So every time we've increased that threshold so far, it's been gobbled up quite quickly. There's a lot of appetite for fixed borrowing costs for a decentralized stablecoin. As we always do, we're playing it very safe. We're sort of rolling it out slowly. We will be increasing that by another 1 million probably this week. Just sort of each time we're increasing it, we're just seeing what are the impacts on liquidity in the stable pools and things like that. We increased the caps on our Holla stability module just at the end of last week, I believe. So that allows that to supply more Holla depending on the price in those stable pools, right? So whenever, let's say somebody comes in and swaps a lot of DOT for Holla, for example, the worst thing you can do is allow the slippage to push it so that they're paying more than $1 for a holler, right? Is that you don't want the price to move above one, the same as you don't want it to move below one. You want it to be stable. You want people to be able to rely on the fact that they can buy and sell holler for $1 equivalent, right? So the HSM allows it to mint holler in exchange for stable coins that are earning a yield. So the HSM currently contains 500,000 AUSDC, 400,000 AUSDT. So those are stable coins that are lent in our money market. So those are earning, I think this morning it was like 8-9% APR just on those because they're being borrowed so much, as well as a few 100,000 SUSDE and SUSDS. So those are yield staked stable coins on Ethereum, which we source via Snowbridge. So lots of stable coins there, defending the peg. So that means if the price deviates below one, it hasn't done that in the last week or so much, but it deviates below one outside of some fixed parameters, then it will start buying it using those stable coins. So it automatically will come in and defend the price once it's outside of those params.
Yeah. So on the October 11 accent, this stablecoin still works well.
Yes, absolutely. It stayed exactly where it was. We did have some liquidations for Holler, which the protocol handled absolutely fine. The price wasn't impacted by that. Now, obviously, I'm not going to rave about that because we have very low issuance at the moment, very low liquidity because we're taking this safe approach. But it was nice to see I don't want to say nice to see. It wasn't nice to see anybody be liquidated, right? Like I don't want my users to be liquidated, but it's nice to see that the protocol is doing what it should do by executing is what's important, right? A lot of the times, these options they become less stable when you need them to be stable. So it was good to see that it's working as intended.
Okay, and for stable coins to gain adoption, they must reach users across multiple exchanges. This is how the USDT and UST does, or partnership planned for broader integration.
So first port of call is to establish a strong peg and strong growth on hydration, because we need to make sure before we expand too violently, you need to make sure the base is very solid. Because if you go growth external everywhere, there's too many pies potentially that you're trying to juggle if you don't have a solid base. So that's why we haven't immediately launched looking to push it everywhere, right? You may have seen recently the proposal for the People chain to DCA into some Holler. That's temporarily been paused to be reviewed, but you can expect that to come back soon. So Holler can be used in other products inside the Polkadot ecosystem to their networks to use as a stable coin. So certainly within the ecosystem, yes. We will be finalizing the Hyperbridge integration soon, which will allow us to expand beyond Polkadot to take Holler outside of the ecosystem. And then, of course, further down the line, we would then look to see, can we get some more on and off ramps involved where Holler can be used for this. And we have some other use cases for Holler that we'd like to explore and push in order to drive usage rather than just distribution.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for sharing the background information of the stable coins. Now I have two topics to touch on for both of you guys. The first one is, not just the hydration. We've also seen projects like Hyperliquid and AAVE launching their own stable coins. And do you think this trend's gonna keep picking up? Like, will every big DeFi protocol end up having its own stable coin at some point? What kind of ecosystem do you think is actually big and strong enough to make that work. In the end, are we going to see just a few dominant ones or tons of stable coins popping up everywhere across different chains? How about we start from Tyrone this time?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, now the market is really a hot pot on the topic of stablecoin, and you can see different types of stablecoin, fiat-backed stablecoin, right? Yield-bearing stablecoin, over-collateralized stablecoin. So these different types of stablecoins are still, in the growing stage in the market, and you can see new stablecoin that launched by stablecoin chain, right? Like Plasma and some other chains. They're competing like on the transaction speed, on the tolerance of the transaction, and sort of things that can improve the capacity of the stablecoin, so which makes them like the dedicated chain for stablecoin. This situation is like what happening on liquidity farming back to the few years ago, right? Because that's the hot topic, so everybody's building this product, and at the end of the game, I think for fiat stablecoin, there'll be just several suppliers in the market, so people can use that because their ultimate goal is for payment. So it's like more of the use case is on the real world that you can pay for atoms. So that's the ultimate gain for them. So which means there will be no longer of lots of competitor inside of this track. But on chain, the vault, the people can get into it, and depends on their portfolio to get the strategy of the yield. So which makes people, the people have different favors on the portfolio strategies. So something like high risk and something like low risk. So you can choose which like stablecoin, and which means which of the votes you are choosing, and which means what failure what's your prefer in the risk. And this type of yield-bearing stablecoin will be, lots of on chain in the current market and also in the future. And in a third type of stablecoin, like what Holland is, the over collateral stablecoin, I'm not thinking they clear, to be honest. So that's also the reason I want to ask Ben, what do you think is the ultimate challenge or ultimate goal for the over collateral stablecoin? So that's also what I'm thinking about.
I think with the over collateralized, it allows you to move away from the traditional system more, right? So there's no denying USDT and USDC, they're two of the most profitable products in this space, or USDT even one of the most profitable products in the world, right? Crazy money, because they've just got billions and billions of dollars, which they've just then converted to treasuries, and then they just earn a yield. They don't pass that on to anyone, they're just sitting on it. So they're earning 5+%, whatever it is at the moment, yield on these treasuries, and they're not passing any of that on. So they're absolutely loving life. You're seeing all of a sudden now these big products like Hyperliquid are thinking like, well, hang on, we've got 4 or 5 billion of USDC here. Why are we like just letting them have this yield, right? This is crazy. So you saw this fanatical bidding process of all of these different suppliers who wanted to supply a stablecoin to Hyperliquid. Now it's no different on a fundamental level from USDT, USDC. It's still buying treasuries, etc. The difference is that they've committed to use that yield, for example, buying back Hype. So that's at least bringing some value back into the system. So slightly improvement from Tether, etc. But you're still relying on those traditional rails of banks and issuers with US treasuries, right? So whilst decentralized stablecoins are still pegged to a fiat asset, right? This is just purely for the sake of mentally, people like stability of one, right? Like it's nice and easy for most people to just do numbers when you're basing it on one. If you start basing it on 3 point something or whatever, it's very hard to understand where you're at. So whilst it uses that peg, it's actually it's not relying on those traditional structures, right? So you can mint it against DOT, against Bitcoin, or whatever it is, and you can make those work for you. So, for example, people who own Bitcoin, they just want to sit and hold their Bitcoin forever. They think the value is going to continuously go up, but it doesn't mean that they can't utilize that capital in some way, right? So things like Holla, Go, and other decentralized stablecoins allow you to say, right, okay, I'm going to sit on this honeypot forever, but I'd like to actually take a bit out as a loan to work or whatever it is that you want to do. So it just gives you other optionality. I think the centralized ones are still going to be the biggest just because you've got institutions and the treasuries is a huge use case, and RWAs is obviously growing and growing and growing. So I don't think your decentralized stablecoins are necessarily going to be the biggest stablecoins, like versus, say, for example, Tether. I think that's unrealistic. But there are huge opportunities there. The more Bitcoin, Ethereum, DOT, etc. grow, the more of this sort of locked up value that you can make use of. So if you have a strong product like, for example, Holla, designed to maintain that peg, but have ease of access, predictable borrowing costs, etc., and keeping that value in the system. So it's not going off to banks or middlemen or etc. That's staying in the system, being used to defend the peg or to reward holders or whatever it is as the tokenomics grow. Then there's definitely a use for products like that.
Oh, okay, so there are going to be tons of decentralized stable coins popping up everywhere across
I would expect so, yeah. But I don't think the trend is going to soften. People are seeing like we can make all of this money rather than just using Tether, Circle, etc. I think where some of the biggest opportunities will be, like you say, because there's going to be so many different ones, will be, well, okay, where are you exchanging these? How are you exchanging these? There's a big opportunity there. We've sort of started using the term sort of on-chain forex for hydration, where we're going to be adding Circle's Euro soon through Hyperbridge, connecting to Base. And there's some other ones people are asking for, the Great British Pound. Can we do a version of that? So if you can reliably offer a location for people to swap between these assets, because let's not pretend forex movements are one of the largest traded markets in the world, then that's a huge opportunity that will grow as more and more and more and more of these stable coins pop up.
And even though in Polkadot there are gonna be more than one stable coins possibly in the future, so what's your take on this?
There's different stable coins can be used for different things, right? So clearly the Polkadot USD stablecoin, the intention here is to use this, I understand, for paying for security, and the Polkadot protocol wants to be able to control that absolutely without other governance tokens interventions or other set of holders, which makes perfect sense. That can exist at the same time as a fully decentralized, over collateralized, multi-asset stablecoin like Holla. Obviously, we've developed our entire DeFi stack around maintaining the peg and driving that for Holla. So we're very confident that can continue to grow alongside Polkadot USD. But there's also talk about another one, right? Gavin sort of hinted towards a unstable stable, that's more experimental, let's say, which will be extremely interesting. And obviously we've seen hints towards proof of personhood and the likes as well. So that's really exciting to see how that, but ultimately you need liquidity for exchanging between various stable coins. If people receive payment in Polkadot's USD, and they want to off ramp that, then you need liquidity between that stablecoin and whatever it is you use to off ramp. So I hope hydration has a place for supporting with that.
Okay, cool. Let's move on to the next topic, which is security. After the Luna collapse in 2022 and USDE briefly depegging during October 11, a lot of users are still a bit worried about decentralized stablecoins. How do you see these security concerns from the community? Who wanna start first?
Yeah, I will take it first. Okay, so Luna and Ethena is essentially the different thing. So fundamentally, they are quite like a different thing. So if you back into the few weeks ago in October 11th, you can see the depeg is happening on the USD on Binance, but on chain there's not much of impact because there was just a lot of people are looping the USD deposit and borrowing out another stable coin and then sell it to USDT and buying the USDE again and deposit. So they are doing this looping for two points. Firstly is the Ethena is doing the incentive program on Aave and on Plasma as well. So their incentive looping strategy. That's first, and secondly is people are flowing a lot of liquidity to USD liquidity to Binance because they can earn about 12% of APY from there. As also what Ethena is doing the core incentive program with Binance. So that's the reason why you can see the Binance of the depegging is firstly happening, and then the markets on chain will following up. So and the deleveraging those people who looping on Aave. But after a few hours, the pack is repacked for the USD because fundamentally the origin logistic of USD is still works healthy because they are using the delta neutral, and delta neutral is not harmed by this. And I would like to say they've passed the first what is that? They've passed the first task in the market, right? And although there is the depeg on the pricing in the exchange, but it's not a big deal. And the USD well, I think they will keep this strategy works well, and that's also a very I mean this type of stable coin will be a great one, like the synthetics stablecoin, right? So which backed by delta neutral strategy, and a few more of the teams are doing this strategy as well, like Resolve, which is USR. So they are also using the delta neutral. So this strategy looks well, but it's definitely essentially not a thing to be compared with Luna.
Yeah, it's true. So Ben, what's your take on this?
Yeah.
Even Hala kind of passed the text.
Yeah, no, I think with the USDE side of things, I think it's important to differentiate between the market price on Binance and the actual underlying fair value price of the asset. So, for example, Aave, I believe they use the fair value price, which is why loads of users weren't liquidated for their looped positions there. Binance obviously had this huge unwinding event, which caused the value of it on Binance specifically to depeg, but everywhere wasn't necessarily using the price because that wasn't the whole market. The actual underlying asset was all, like you said, it's delta neutral strategies that are backing that. So that value was never lost. It was actually extremely profitable event for Ethena because when you have all of these positions unwinding, you leave these huge gaps between the perpetuals and spot prices, which you can make a nice, healthy amount of revenue from. So the event itself was actually really positive for USDE. But yeah, the Luna obviously is in the back of everybody's mind. Similar breakdown events that just spiral to into a death spiral, and people still ask to this day, oh, will this lead to a death spiral, etc. But I think it's important to differentiate between over collateralized stable coins and, for example, algorithmic stable coins, which aren't backed, but they're just working based on some game theory or mechanism or something.
Okay, cool. Okay, since we have I think we have extra times before our live stream. I collected some questions from a community member who is a big fan for hydration and Bifrost, but he told me that he already asked questions for Bifrost, so he sent me some question for hydration, especially. So I will pick 2 questions for you to answer him. The first is, hydration seems tailored to more advanced DeFi users, but there's a massive potential market among mainstream users. Have you thought about creating simpler financial products like smarter DeFi savings? For instance, something like shows 5 to 15% APY, flexible or fixed, while the back end automatically runs multiple strategies, lending, stable coins, perpetuals, kind of like an AI management portfolio. It's a long question.
Yeah, actually, I think about this all the time. So we learned with the Gigadot launch just how popular one-click solutions are, right? So people are quite happy to go, oh yeah, I'll earn that APY with my DOT, press a button, it's already doing it, right? People like that it automatically supplies collateral, it automatically is earning the rewards. You're not having to do another step and then do another step. We did a similar thing with the Holla launch, but it is still more complicated in that there are sort of 4 different choices, right? With your Holla, you can there's 4 different stable pools, all have a slightly different rate, which obviously can be quite confusing. So I do regularly think about how could we simplify that further. I think given we have these 4 stable pools with their respective yields, we have the HSM, which is obviously always earning a yield, and Holla itself through the borrowing feature is also earning some APY. So I think there are conversations to be had, because obviously hydration is a DAO, around how much of those revenues do we divert towards peg maintenance, how much do we divert towards the protocol, and how much do we divert towards users to give them reasons to hold. So I would like to see, we've talked about it numerous times, some sort of staked Holla, or some sort of Holla product that people can just buy, or one click go into, and it would in some way amalgamate revenues from all these different streams into one. So the protocol will go, oh, okay, we need more liquidity against USDT, so we're going to divert any new Holla into that pool, and the users are not making those decisions themselves. So I think there's definitely things that can be done there, whether that's through smart contracts or AI run vaults or what, that remains to be seen. Like I said, we're in that early bootstrapping phase with it. But yes, simple one-click solutions are absolutely a priority for us.
Okay, cool. The second question is, hydration has introduced many features, and what's on your to-do list next, and what new milestones can users expect to see within next year or by 2026?
Well, there are always loads. Every single time we launch a big feature, everybody's geared up to it, thinking, right, okay, that's the last push for a little while. We talked about the holy trinity of DeFi being completed with swaps, lending and borrowing, and stablecoin all launched under the same roof. There are always ways to improve that, and like I said, we're rolling out additional security measures and PEPL so that things can be liquidated faster. So all these things will continue to roll out. But with regards to new features, there's always some around the corner. I've alluded to Giga HDX, for example, to try and we had great success with our HDX staking and linking that up with governance and increasing participation to probably the highest in Web3 through that. Gamification generally works if you align interests. So Giga HDX would hopefully combine some of those gamification elements with the ability to, borrow against those positions and earn even more of the protocol revenue, perhaps. But there are some really, really cool things coming down the track as well. Our CTO has previously spoken at Decoded, I think, about ICE, our intense composing engine. So rather than necessarily swapping against what liquidity is sitting there, it will match orders between different users, and that will do that all seamlessly in the back so that users can get net lower slippage, better price execution, etc. And you can massively increase your throughput through that. Working with Hyperbridge, we could do those cross-chain. So some huge room for growth there. And there's obviously other parts of DeFi that we haven't explored to date that would be a great complement for hydration, such as perpetuals. You build those on top of super deep spot liquidity, and you have potentially a killer product. So I would expect to see some movement there at some point.
Yeah, great to hear. Okay, maybe before we wrap up, Tyrone can share what's going on Bifrost. What's your main focus now?
Yeah. Recently, mainly focused on the liquid staking of ETH. So we'll be launching at the end of this year. We're pushing it via DeFi Singularity as well. So DeFi Singularity is the liquidity incentive program across layer 2s and also Ethereum, which funded by Polkadot Treasury. And we'll try to leverage that incentive to attract more of the liquidity from ETH to Polkadot and launch VETH, so which is the liquid staking ETH that issued by Bifrost. And that's the mission one. And the secondly is the new tokenomics of Bifrost native token. We haven't decided, officially announcement about this formally launching, but I think this will be like in November or December. But stay tuned. This will be a big move of Bifrost, and it's a big milestone. And that's two news. The big news of Bifrost.
Okay. Okay. Thanks for sharing. I think that's all for today. Thank you for both of our audience, for both of our guests for sharing, and thank you of all our audience to be here watching today. And we will keep an eye on Bifrost and hydration, and keep posted for everything for the users. So until next time, that's all for today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thanks for having me. Bye bye.
Mm-hmm. Bye bye.